Hey everyone, Dylan Gowan here. Welcome back to another installment of Overkill Reviews, BangerTV's weekly heavy metal review show. I'm back at the Banger Bar, oddly enough, not for a progressive metal review, but before I get into the review, I have just a quick personal update. I'm offering drum lessons, so if you guys are interested in learning some extreme metal drumming, hit me up on Instagram at dylan.gowan, send me a DM, book a time, and let's play some drums. It's been a while since I've done a review of a band outside of Prague, but I'm glad I'm talking about these guys.
Nowhere to run, skinless fingers everywhere. Precious whip on my back. Endless glory, death is near. Littless eyes, the dead staring back at me. Horrid screams, die with slicing me apart. Sundial, infernal. Sundial.
It's the new sixth studio album by Bloodbath called Survival of the Sickest, out today through Napalm Records. Bloodbath are a death metal supergroup that formed in 1998 in Stockholm at a party where Jonas and Anders of Catatonia, Michael Ackerfeld of Opeth, and Dan Swano of Edge of Sanity were attending. They decided to form a project to recreate the sound of old-school Swedish death metal, bands like Entombed, Dismember, Grave, and Unleash. Bloodbath were one of the first bands that really got me into death metal, and the moment I heard Nightmares Made Flesh and the Wacken Carnage live album, I was immediately hooked. The band has slowly started playing more shows outside of the festival circuit, and the overwhelming demand for them has led the group to undergo several lineup changes. Jonas and Anders are the only original members left, while vocalist Nick Holmes of Paradise Lost joined in 2014, Martin Axelrod joined a decade earlier in 2004, and newcomer Thomas Advik of Lick joins the band and makes his album debut with this band. But he's already made his album debut with Lick, but that's a whole other band because this is a death metal supergroup. You get the picture. The big question is, how can this band manage to keep the interest of this style of death metal when the subgenre is constantly evolving its sound? Well, let's find out. Many bands, when starting their records, often lead in with an easy track to kind of get you excited for what's to come. That's not at all how this record starts. In fact, it never really slows down. Bloodbath just go right for the jugular, chokeslam you up against the wall, and command your attention for the next 45 minutes. It's a very intense and chaotic album. Their sound still pays homage to the old school Swedish death metal style, but incorporates some modern elements to keep it from sounding identical to their predecessors. Normally, an album that goes all in on one element can be a bit overwhelming and boring, but in this instance, Bloodbath manages to keep this album a very entertaining listen. Hell, even the opening line perfectly summarizes the sound of the album. Fucked, nowhere to run. A notable highlight that exemplifies the spirit of the early 90s death metal sound is the second track, Putrefying Corpse, which is one of my absolute favorite tracks on this record. It's just a barrage of brutal riffs accompanied by intense drumming and piercing vocals, and yet every idea presented is very catchy and memorable. This track also features Barney Greenway of Napalm Death, who delivers a great performance, and his vocals on this track really remind me of Lars Goran Petrov of Entombed. Have a listen. Just like that, it's just such a good riff. I know I should really stop smacking on the table, but that is such a freaking awesome part of that song, and it's just such high energy, and it just makes you want to headbang till your face falls off your skull. Speaking of the drumming of Martin Axelrod is absolutely insane on this album and delivers a masterclass on how to approach this style of death metal. He manages to explore the space and add a more progressive element into this record. The offbeats on the ride and the hi-hat are clever, playing over the bar with longer fills, and the various other techniques he throws in makes this album unpredictable from a rhythmic standpoint. The modern approach to the drumming allows Bloodbath to stand out from other bands who emulate this style, adding some fills that aren't really the same thing over and over again. My favorite Martin Axelrod moment occurs in the track Affliction of Extinction, where he does this crazy long fill into the verse. And the section in Dead Parade. It's just that. I can't even replicate it here. He just does some like freaking crazy like inverted paradiddles, and he just adds some like kind of jazzy ghost notes things. It's just so freaking cool when he does that, because it's like, okay, boring long fill, yeah, we've heard that a million times, but then he adds some like kind of jazz elements into it, and it's just like, this guy's so fucking clever. The unpredictability of the drumming also coincides with each song structure themselves, and how quickly these songs can change in direction before revisiting previous ideas, which gives a lot more dimension and shape while keeping the listener guessing. This happens in tracks like Malignant Maggot Therapy, where they slow down and go into a more hypnotic groove moment before the sound of Anders and Thomas like chainsaw-like guitars kick back in. And also in tracks like Tales of Melting Flesh, how they keep going into this intensity part, and then it goes into this atmospheric section, and it sounds a bit disorienting before it ends off with this kind of ultra creepy music box rendition of the song. But Born Infernal really stands out, where they're constantly jumping from one different riff to another, and almost like it's summarizing the big four of Swedish death metal in one song. Another curveball is that it really ends slowly by their standards with No God Before Me, which is a welcoming surprise. It's more of a Death Doom type song, but you don't really expect it from Bloodbath, and it's a nice contrast to the opening of the record. Speaking of nice contrast to our YouTube channel, we also got our Twitch channel. We also have Lock Horns and Shredders of Metal, and I've been dying to do a progressive metal episode, so if you want some prog in the Lock Horns episodes, leave a comments down below. Despite the unpredictable nature of the song structure, you pretty much know what you're going to get when it comes to the tonality, the production, and the ideas on this record. This can be both a positive and a negative. Sure, some ideas have been done before by countless other bands, but Bloodbath reimagines these ideas effectively when the ideas are presented. They're going to do subtle things to keep things interesting. They're not going to reinvent the genre, and that's not the point when listening to a Bloodbath record. They're a band that plays to their strengths, and they utilize them very well. Old Nick delivers a great performance on this record, and it really solidifies his spot within the legacy of Bloodbath. His voice is more rhythmic and a bit more percussive, often following the drums, which adds an additional hook to these songs. That's why an older approach to death metal is so effective and will stay relevant, is because it's arguably more melodic and catchy. Take a song like Carved, which has my favorite vocal line on the entire record. Meat hook guinea pig, partly rotten and foaming at the mouth, eyes turned white, parasites writhing in your flesh, I won't look away when you're screaming out to die. That's just death metal slam poetry right there. Most supergroups fail due to the egos of the individuals getting in the way of the main objective of creating an album. But Bloodbath have been able to avoid this pitfall. They have amazing chemistry as songwriters and deliver very memorable tunes that will be easily enjoyed by all types of death metal fans. I would argue that this is the best albums of the Holmes era, and hopefully we will finally have a Bloodbath show in Canada next year. Survival of the Sickest is a barrage of mean, nasty riffs accompanied by clever drumming, snarling and piercing vocals, great production, and the guests add a great bonus to this record. These students of death metal history are now masters of their craft. This is without a doubt a 4 out of 5 skulls. So what did you think of Survival of the Sickest? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Check out our Twitch channel, check out our Patreon campaign, and I'll be back to talk about a progressive metal band next time I'm here at the Banger Bar. But until then, this has been Overkill Reviews.